Hello there, Apple Bites. This is your Apple Bite written Rit Ralph talking to you straight from our show here, Apple Bites. And of course, you got our pals Adrian and Sherrod over there on the side, Tony and Nat there on the bottom.
How y'all
Folks,
doing out there?
How's everyone, guys?
Hello, Internet.
hello, Internet. So, guys, I know we last time we saw you guys were at New York Fanfare NYC. There you go. At Fanfare NYC, and we got a chance to look at your game, and we also had a chance to talk about it. Now, I want you guys, either one of you, to start off saying, okay, what it is you do. Give them the spiel. Go for it.
I guess I'll start. As you said, my name is Adrian Garcia. I am the creator of Dungeonborn. Dungeonborn is a role-playing game that, after years of playing, testing, and playing with friends, me and the co-creator and designer Sherrod Ford, we decided to, create our own Dungeons and Dragons game around the year 2014, especially when the change between the new system of 5e was coming aboard. We weren't kind of sure about how the new D&D system was, and we wanted to do something that was different. So I went to everybody and I was like, look, I have an idea. Why don't we create our own system, which is, as you can see, Dungeonborn? And if we were hired by wizards, the main conceit was, if we were hired by wizards, how would we do it? So this is before everything that was happening with the OGL and all this kind of stuff that's been going on. So we came up with, after several years, we've been working on it, and we've come up with our own dungeon board system, which I call, the system is based off what is a D20 system, of course, like everyone else right now. But I call it the Navi system. So yeah, it's an RPG. It's more in line with epic heroes, epic storytelling, but in the vein of the world's most famous game. And I guess that you could say that's pretty it in a nutshell.
That sounds pretty good, of course. I know there's more to it, but there's always more to it.
Always, always.
And Sherrod, what do you have to say about the whole thing? Let's hear what
Well,
your take on this.
the funny thing is that when me and Adrian started talking about this, at first I was like, you know what, a game that I write a game. What does that entail and everything like that? And then what really happened is that I was like, you know what? Let me start small. Give me an island to work on, right? And I created the island, and my partner who's in crime, who's not here, John, created this island called Vinlar, and it was just, we wanted to write some real stories about things that actually went on in the world, and how can we translate them into a fantasy game. So we created Vinlar, and then obviously showed it to Adrian. Adrian loved it. We're playing it, and then I remembered all the way back to when I was 19, 20, running a game, and I had these old maps. I mean, second edition core maps, took like 12 pages to put together. And he's like, "Yo, dude, you gotta just write this stuff. Let's go." And then eventually, I tagged on board. Then all of a sudden, he's like, "Yo, why don't you work on this with me? Why don't you work?" He pulled me in. He was just like, "Come on, come on." He got it drag me. And in that, it's just been a joy to create, because it really is our own stories. It's those moments where we're like, you know what? In D&D, I wasn't a fan of how this worked. How do I make it work in a way that I think translates better to a younger audience, translates better to like really making you feel your character.
Right.
So like I've just really, really been kind of like on board, and just I'm happy he drugged me in. I was kicking and screaming at first, but I'm happy he dragged me into this adventure. So
That's like a technique that it usually works. Like if you're if you're unhappy about something in a product, and if you go make it your way, chances are there are other people that feel the same way you do. So that always works.
You know what's funny about that? It's exactly that, and
Yeah.
that's about what the gaming industry is exactly at that right at this moment, with everything that's been happening with Dungeons and Dragons, all kind of stuff.
Hmm.
Um, everybody, well, this happened in 3.0 as well,
Yeah.
the earlier versions of it. Everyone wanted to splinter off and make their own world. it kind of contracted for a little while. Well, you just had Pathfinder and Dungeons and Dragons. Now it's opening up again. So I when we were doing Dungeonborn, I was coming off fourth edition game. I really liked the game, but I didn't. It wasn't being translated into 5e. Like I didn't know what 5e was going to be. You know, it's 2014. You don't really know what it is. So I thought it was a. I had the idea. It's like, hey, this is the perfect opportunity to really put our ideas, our home. Everything comes from a homebrew. So we were like, hey, how do we put our ideas together and create something that everyone will recognize, but everyone will get a new flavor or a new taste of that.
Right.
It's like chocolate. Everybody has their favorite chocolate. You have Hershey, Nestle, and everything. Everyone knows it's chocolate, but every flavor is slightly different. So you're gonna gravitate to your flavor of the
Right. Like the example I can think of is like I went to a panel that they were just talking about fan fiction writing,
Mhm.
and they said like let's say like you watch Naruto, but you think Sakura sucks. She doesn't have to suck in your fan fiction. You can make Sakura awesome because chances are there are other people out there who think Sakura sucks. So
Right.
they don't like what you're doing. And I don't no hate man. I don't think Sakura sucks.
That's why she's the perfect face for NTR though.
But I mean, in case to go to that example, for example,
Yeah.
as we're writing the game, he's like, "Listen, I want you to revamp the Ranger class, right?" Now, well, I looked at him like he was a crazy person because he knows up and down how much I hate the Ranger class. I've hated it since I've ever played it in second edition. I'm like, grr. And then I got to actually create it in a way, and he was like, "Yo, take these pieces that I put together, make something out of it." And I was just like, so it took me about a week, but in it, I'm just like, oh man, I like this part. Oh man, I took influences from like what I've seen in Lord of the Rings and influences from what I even seen from like one of my old childhood movies was Beastmaster. I love Beastmaster,
Oh
right?
yeah,
I'm like, I'm like, Rangers are people, they have pets that do their biddings. Like, and then I just eventually I got into it, and now I'm just like, yeah, this is a dope class. You know what? This ain't I can work with this. And it's just like because I got to create it myself or kind of take the pieces that Adrian had started and put together and then mold it. And then it was just like, now I like it. Like, you know what I'm saying? The mage too. I hate casters. He got me in again. He did it to me again. And now all of a sudden I'm like, this is fantastic. But it's kind of like one of those things where you got to kind of mess with it yourself and put your own ideas into it. Then it becomes
So
something that you
let
can
me ask you this
appreciate.
then, because I was wondering what was it about the ranger and the mage classes that you didn't like? Because I've heard people talk about certain classes and classes they don't like, and but there's always like a reason for it. There's always like it's not just because you hate it; it's because this aspect of it doesn't work for me.
I
Well,
agree.
for me, it was when I used to do the class, it was for the ranger, it was the oath. Like I felt like in second edition they kind of forced this idea that like you had to choose between like that oath of being that protector even if the mission went somewhere else. Like if you're writing and you got this important mission to go to with your allies but a forest is burning to the left, you better go deal with that or you're going to lose your empathy, right?
And
And I was
I
like,
know what you're talking
nah, I
about.
don't like the idealism of that,
for
right?
me,
So it fell off for me. I'm sorry, Adrian, go ahead.
no, no, go ahead. No, no, no. I'm just because we're talking about the Ranger. I always play a Ranger, so it was one of those things where part of the design thing, because we're game designers. We're not just most people out here when we talk about putting a book together and stuff like that. You become a game designer.
Yeah.
You can create a game for video games, whatever, because you're doing the actual work. You're putting in the writing stuff. So I always play Ranger, so I'm more comfortable by that. But also to break myself out of design wise what I would normally put into the Ranger, you have to switch it off to somebody else who sees it with new eyes. So I didn't have a problem with the Rangers all going up all the way, but I also want how you diversify the character classes so the Ranger doesn't feel like the fighter. From second edition, he felt like the fighter. He was like a subclass level of the fighter. So like the mechanical wise, it's like, okay, mechanically, how do we I think that's also the big problem with the Ranger in third edition. How do you make it different than a spellcaster and a fighter? You have to give it a different flavor or the ability to make choices which amplify the flavor of that ranger. So, like he's saying, okay, so we have a Beastmaster. Fine, Dungeonborn has a Beastmaster, but Dungeonborn also has the sword user. So yes, he could fit into that kind of fighter, but he's slightly different than the Beastmaster.
Right.
Then we have the what is it the
Archer.
archer type of ranger. So you have actually we have four different types of styles for that ranger class. So when you do pick it up, it's like, oh, I'm just a fighter that uses my search skill to go through the forest and do all these things. No, you have an actual ranger style going in.
Right.
So again, these were the ideas, and a lot of and as the years have gone by, a lot of the core concepts have been adopted by other gamers. We're not the only ones in the game sphere out there with ideas and stuff. So there are other people coming up with very similar ideas.
I was about to say that because when I started playing, I guess my DM had already decided what he was going to do with the ranger and what he was going to do with all that because I don't know anything of what you're talking about.
Right.
You're like telling me this stuff, and I'm like, what, dude? My ranger was fantastic. I didn't play him, but he
Right.
played him really well in two-handed fighting, and it was it's like you see in the movies. This guy
Right.
can use the bow, can use the sword, can use two swords, and everybody was like, "Oh, that's badass."
Right. A lot of the ideas are homebrew, but we have to codify them. What the codifying is of those homebrew ideas is to make the actual product, and that's what Dungeonborn is. It's a product of all the art ideas that we have,
Right.
and trying to get it out into the real world. And it's one of those things where there's so much involved in just it's not just a role playing game because it's a business. You're thinking about art. You're thinking about it's you're thinking about art. You're thinking about writing. You're thinking about
Right.
business. We're dealing with people. You're going to conventions. You're trying to put all this stuff together. So after a while, sometimes you get lost because at some point you can't do it all. It's one of those things where we love the game. We're playing the game. We've play tested it for at least it's been like over 7 years that we've
Yeah.
been playing the game, and we've had other people play it, and everyone has liked it. Now we're at the cusp, and we've been at the cusp of just trying to jump over that next hurdle.
I know what
And
you're talking about because we've been trying to talk to you for ages. Before
it,
we've been trying
it's
to talk to you in person. That's why when we finally got you at fanfare, it was
right.
fantastic. Speaking of
It's
talking to you guys,
oh
Oh, look,
yes.
got our
Hey,
man John on
look,
board. I
John,
was just speaking about him.
there we go.
What's the matter with you guy? Can you hear me?
Yes.
now
This is
the
our other
trio's
partner
all
in crime.
here.
I'm sorry, man. I look like I just woke up. I just finished up a class, man. So what's going on?
I can
How you
tell you look
doing?
like you're at the school.
Ah, so Ralph and then from nothing. The heck is your name, bro?
So you got Nat
Long
and Johnny.
story. Oh, long story. All right, no problem, man. And Roman Tony. I
Hey,
love it. What's up, man? How you doing, guys?
good, good, good.
Doing all right. What's up,
I'm
John?
just turning in just to say what's up. Adrian, how you doing, man? And Sherrod,
Doing all
long
right.
time no see, bro.
Oh
So
man, dude, it's good to see you. It's good to have you on. It's always great.
Thank you.
It's so funny because I know you introduced me to Adrian and Sherrod, and then after that I was like, okay, I'm gonna try to get them on. I'm trying to interview them. Then we finally got you at fanfare, and
Right.
then okay, then we were like, okay, let's try to see if we can get them on the live show, and we finally got you all together here on the live show. There you go.
yes,
Yeah, man.
awesome,
That was a quest.
awesome.
Is
Yeah.
Yeah,
But
I
we
hang
were
out.
just again we
Yeah.
were talking about just the game and just like I mean just the joy of like writing it. And I was talking about my partner over here, John, who as we started writing Tales of Enlar, it was one of those things where it was like a lot of it was like I want to like put those real world situations. So when Tales of Enlar comes out, you're gonna see things that like kind of make sense to you in a way of like, part of it is like we talk about a group that came over and conquered a native group. What does that sound like? That sounds like our American history. Like, we we talk about certain levels of discrimination and things like that. So you see that in the story, and we don't have to use multiple races either. So it's not like there's elves here and orcs here and this here. You can build that story just within the culture. So that was something that we did that was great. And I want to just obviously shout out John because he got on the channel finally. Give him that shout out that he deserves and stuff like that. But we no, we are again, and you're showing the site. Oh, that's one of the stories, I
Mhm.
Yes.
believe. I can't see it from here.
Yeah, it is.
Yes.
It's the
So
one that John sent me
that's
recently.
just talking about the legend of one of the major features or the major races, cultures that are in our world. So, and he's been doing a great job with that. Just those like stories, just kind of give you a feel of what's going on. And if he wants to throw down a little something, so I don't talk
Go,
over him.
Johnny, go.
No, the whole thing that I was trying to do was, as Adrian was talking to us about different ways of sharing the story, is is to come up with small stories that would help us to develop ecology, help us to develop the races, the cultures, and everything like that. I'm a visual person. I like seeing things come to life, and if I can do it in writing and imagine it, I'll do it like that. Um, and I wanted to use characters that or storyline that made it mysterious. I remember Adrian, if you can jump in when you get a chance to,
I'm sure.
when it was mentioned to him about that I don't use orcs, or
Right.
we weren't using orcs in Tales of Vinlar. He was like, "What? Who doesn't use orcs?" And I'm like, I said I didn't want to use it because I was known to be the lover of orcs and half orcs and all that other stuff. I mean, I could tell you stories of them. They were my favorite villain, but yet they were my favorite hero. Believe it or not, I made one or two heroes out of them because of the fact of it was almost like as they did with Dritz Duorden, I made my own character of a half orc, or orc that really struggled in life. But I said I didn't want to do it like that. I wanted to do something fresh, new, and to start from the beginnings, like the way I saw Forgotten Realms start their stuff. They started from the beginnings and then they just started developing. And I felt that in order for us to create a great story, people want to see it develop, unfold, come to life. And so I just basically told Sherrod, I said, I don't want to do anything that has to be recognizable to other D&D games that are present in the market. I want to do stories that really touch the heart, touch the experience of our players, um, and to really make sense of it. How can they, um, um, develop something from a new world? Again, everybody's trying to do this new world or their own world. Well, Tales of Inlar, that's what we want to do. We want to do
Right.
something that you never thought we can use, you never thought we can play with.
Right.
So we came up with different stories and stuff, and I would sit down
And so,
with Rod and talk with him about cartoons that we've watched, movies that we watched, and stories and stuff like that. One of the most famous ones, which we ran a game, and if you remember the episode of Justice League animated series, the Unlimited, the first one, where they had to face a gigantic robot that was powered by nuclear power, and
Oh,
they
the
had to
Brimstone
stop it.
episode.
Yeah,
I know. I
um,
remember Brimstone.
yeah. And I told Rod, I said, Rod, I want to make a dungeon that moves like that robot.
And
And
we
he was
played
like,
in that damn thing. We
yeah.
played in
yes,
it.
we
We went to
did.
the
Yes,
app,
we did.
and it was awesome.
I want to make a moving dungeon. I want to create. I want to be. I'm pretty sure people have thought of it. I'm pretty sure that maybe somebody actually wrote it. Maybe they wrote their own kind of like moving dungeon, and I created it. And I told Rod, I gave him ideas for the specs. Rod was the one that actually put more of it. He fleshed it out even better. But I gave the specs in a sense of the idea of how it would appear, and it was a mountain. It was a mountain, not a hill. not a boulder. It was a freaking mountain that was a curse
Like,
to wipe out everything that was Salandris owned. That the Demais felt that what needed to be purified, but they didn't think it would be reality until they saw the horror. And anyone that was in its path, which it moved like a freaking slow, like it was very slow, but when it landed, it destroyed. And we created it all as the curse of Tales of Vinlar.
and again,
Before,
I'm sorry.
no, go ahead. No, go on.
No.
Go on.
And again, that's kind of like developing like in the story because as I was running it and I had the guys test it and play it and stuff like that, like it like just climbing up the leg was like climbing a mountain. And not to sound funny, but they had to enter through the thing's butthole. They had to enter the thing through it, and actually they're fighting through
Uh,
like the body parts. Like I made them go through the intestines and go through the stomach area and all the way up to the heart, which is where they had to get to finally stop this thing. And it was just like
So like
yo, we've never seen something like that before. And it's just something that like again, that came from just a conversation. And again, he's right. We were watching like Justice League. Like he likes to show clips all the time. We were sitting outside smoking a cigar, and he's like, "We should do this." And I'm like, "What?"
You don't need, you don't need weed, bro. You just get Dominican weed, and you're fine, bro. And tobacco, and you're good. You know.
You guys reminded me of all those Ant-Man versus Thanos conversations we had.
Yeah, I mean, we sat there. And, go on, Adrian. I'm sorry.
What I was gonna say is but as you see above, as you see us all together, that's what Dungeonborn is about. Dungeonborn, the Grand Realm which Vinlar takes place in. It's about putting these creators together, these writers and artists, and I want to do that for more people. This is I always looked at it as the foundation, but to also bring in other people that have the same love of role playing, storytelling in that genre. Sometimes you can't make a comic book, but you're still a good storyteller. How do you branch out and to tell your story? So hey, RPG. I went to a school that taught comic books. I learned from that, but again, how do you take if you're not good at it and you think you can still write? How do you take that and mold it into something new? RPGs is a perfect example of you still being creative, still using your ability to write, draw, whatever in a different setting, a different form. Still telling stories, it's just a different outlet. So Dungeonborn, Tales of Vinlar, Grand Gaia, limited edition. These are role playing games that we're all in the process of creating that will allow other people to tell their stories when we eventually get them out.
And what's really great about the system itself, as we've created it, is that it allowed us to branch off into other things that also sparked our ideas and intentions. For example, like I'm doing a superhero game called Dynaverse. Now this is a superhero game. So
Well, we
same system.
changed the name. I made it into.
We'll work that. We'll talk that out. But
Stones at me later.
we'll put the plug in. But
All right.
this is like a superhero game that allows you to now build a superhero in exactly the way or style you want that superhero to be built, right? And I call the GM the illustrator. So now the GM is like the illustrator. Like I'm drawing it out. Like you ever watch that Bugs Bunny cartoon where the guy has the pen and is messing with Bugs Bunny? You're the illustrator in a sense.
Disney's actually doing a bunch of those right now.
And now you get to actually like play out the superhero you've always imagined and things of that nature. And that's great. And we're working on being able to take this system because it's so solid in the format of it, the way it is, and then be able to branch out not just from fantasy RPG, but futuristic RPG or present time RPG. Like that is what allows, again, the creative flow to kind of continue. You know what I'm saying?
We're always coming up.
Of course, our roots are,
and we're always coming up with different mechanics. It's
Yeah.
not. There are days what I have a full time job, so it's like doing the full time job, finding time to create for Dungeonborn or trying to, because doing the graphic design, everything that comes together. But I'm on my head. I'm always coming up with trying to come up with new mechanics, new terminology, new ways of how do we break the mold of what the world's greatest game is. You know, I always my a big thing about Dungeonborn is the terminology. How do you to make it different? You have to change certain things that is going to make it its own breathable entity compared to what's out there already.
Right.
So again, that's the beauty of the brainstorming aspect of when you're brainstorming with John or Sherrod or some other people that we have in our group where we can be like, what do you think of that about this? How do you think? Do you feel like the mechanics here are good or solid? This weekend we were playing Sherrod's game, but for Dungeonborn. So I'm sitting there and as a player and everything, but I'm also sitting there as a designer. So I can see someone using the mechanic of the game, and I can sit back and say, "Wow, it's a buzz. It's kind of out of body in a way because you're like, wow, this person really likes the ability that they're using, and you don't get that as you're writing it, but when you're seeing it, and it's the beauty of role playing games.
Yeah.
When you're seeing them use the mechanic, you're like, I wrote that. You really, and it kind of hypes you up for the next stuff that you want to do. But it also shows that, hey, look, you can do this. I think a lot of creators out there, for the creators out there besides us, you can do this. You just have to keep at it. It's not gonna. It's never going. It may never be 100%, but you have to get out there and try to put it down.
That's one of the wonderful things about being a DM or being a playing D&D is just the fact
Yes.
that you actually see the creative process happening.
Yes.
You can see your world or your character do something or become something else. It's more visible because you're either playing him or you're seeing your world be played.
I agree. I agree. It's also, again, when we talk about I always, in my game for Dungeonborn, when I run Dungeonborn for new players that are coming in, I always try to make the aspect of the mechanical stuff as the physics of the world. So you have dice that you use to make your rolls or whatever, but that that idea is the back concept. It's like it's like gravity. You don't feel it, you don't see it. It's there though, and it comes into play when certain actions happen. So in that sense, you're trying to get them into the idea of role playing. You're trying to get them into the idea of everything mixing together and putting it out there. And this goes for most role playing games in general. I didn't want, again, Dungeonborn is mechanically not as heavy as some other mechanical books or some other books mathematically. That's why I have Sherrod here to work out the magic of the numbers. So we try to keep the math in par, but you don't want to overburden a person that's trying to learn an RPG for the first time.
Right.
So it was trying to find a balance we call it DB. With DB, we were trying to find the balance of what would be a great way for people to come in and play the game, and also how do you put a new coat of wax on character classes that you've played before, but it feels fresh.
Right.
So again, the climate right
It
now.
feels okay. Sorry.
Go ahead, Rod.
No, I was gonna say, and feels loose in a way where it's like you can really role play the character the way you want to role play him and stuff like that in your mind. Like this is how I want to role play this character and make him look. Because in and again, not to knock Fifth or D&D in any way, shape, or form. When I first saw Fifth Edition, the first thing I thought was like, my God, like you've built my personality, and I didn't even get a chance to look at this guy yet. Like I feel like when I read it, that's what I feel sometimes. Like you've
Right.
built my personality already, and
Right.
that bothered me. Like, and again, like fifth edition has a lot of amazing things. Don't get me wrong, but that part like bothered me. So I was like, no, we're gonna not put you in that bind. Like, what? How do you feel this character should be? My favorite part of DMing these guys, and I always say this, my favorite part is they're about to get into something, and they're riding to the place they gotta go, and they're at a campfire, and I just sit back and do nothing. They talk in their characters what they're planning to do, what they're gonna do, what the next steps are, and that could be 20 minutes and 30 minutes, and I'm sitting there just like loving it, like those moments because that's kind of like they're being the character, they're enjoying those moments of interacting with each other in those as those characters, and I didn't have to restrict that. I didn't have to
You
put
know
a
what?
rule.
I'm gonna put a note on that too. With fifth edition, there's I'm not like Shiraz said. There's nothing wrong with fifth edition as a role playing game. It's a great game, but there is a problem, and I know we're gonna do maybe a D&D thing, another one later on. But
Yeah.
there's a problem with D&D in the sense of when D&D fifth edition came out and it became popular, I would say during the pandemic, a little bit before the pandemic, you have websites, and I harp on this all the time. You have websites that go on online and say, let's say Den of Thieves or whatever. I'm just making a website or whatever.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And the byline will be how to max out your character. Now, with Dungeonborn, it's not about maxing out your character or min maxing your character.
Right.
It's about you finding the right blocks on how to build your character and how you can be your character. A lot of the lessons of dungeons role playing games right now is we want to max out that character so it can kill everything. We can run through dungeons. We don't have to wait for the role playing sessions that happen or the elements to happen, which is a wrong thinking because as a combined game, it doesn't work that way because you cheat yourself and you cheat other players because
Well,
they're
that sounds like a smartphone game where you just like buy all the
well,
you just spend all the money to make your character as strong as possible and then blow through it.
well,
So,
that's what the world's greatest games company is looking at in terms of that stuff. We're and with Dungeonborn, we're not looking at it that way. We want you to play your best heroic characters. We want to give you the building blocks to do that in different ways, different looks. You don't have to, another thing, you don't have to use everything. You could just say, hey, I just want to use my sword all the time. You don't have to use feats. You don't have to use special abilities. You don't have to use spells if you didn't want to. You could probably be a wizard that casts one spell and just walks around with a staff or whatever. That's up to you. And that's the beauty of the role playing games. With fifth 5e, you're the DMs that are coming up because there is a DM shortage for fifth edition. The DMs that are coming up, or the I call navigators for Dungeonborn. We're navigators. We help navigate the players through the game. We are trying to. We're not trying for you to win the dungeon. We're trying for you to enjoy the adventure. And if you fight a big bad, defeat the big bad. You're the heroes. That's what it should be about. Dungeonborn is about you being the hero. It's about you being someone. Maybe your influence is Conan. I want to be a barbarian like Conan. Sure, we got it here. Again, you don't have to use everything. You don't have to max it out because what's going to happen is, and I write this in the book for myself for the future when we print them out. I write in the book that says, "Hey, this is for you to put together. You don't have to use everything, but you do have to find a way to build that character up so you can have fun. The
Right.
whole thing of it is the fun factor. Is it going to be fun? Can you put a character together in 30 minutes? Can do we cut out a lot of stuff that we felt like was bloat. Why roll extra dice for a 14 when you could just use the modifier?
Right.
Even before they started doing that recently, because they're starting to do that recently because you come to realize that a lot of the some of the mechanics are archaic. So the idea was to make Dungeonborn, or even the ideas that Dungeonborn represents, outward to other people who play. So when we do play it, they're like, "Wow, you don't use you don't roll 14 first to see what your modifier is." No, we already know what the modifier is. Roll d10. That's what adds up. I use an array. He uses ability points to build up the character. So there are different ways of doing it. But again, it's to cut some of the fat out, but also put some beef in. So when you're fighting, I have for my character class, I play in his game. I play a paladin. I have some feats. I have some special abilities that I mix about, and they all have. And what we added was triggers, a la fourth edition of the world's greatest game.
Right.
So you know exact, and this is a helping thing for actually. It's kind of genius what they did with that edition because, and as I see it, and it wasn't they made it the idea that you were trying to become Warcraft, but it taught new players when to use those abilities when they would come out. So by the time you were, say, you started at first level, by the time you were like third or fourth, you knew, okay, this is a will. I can use it at any time. This is an encounter. I can use two action slots because we use an action. I'm building an action slot for the game that we have. We right now we do basic actions and stuff, but it takes two action slots. Okay, so you know that you only do it once during the combat. Then you
Right.
have a daily one, which does the same thing, but you can only use it once a day. Those are where the triggers are. By the end of the day, you already know. Okay, I know when this goes on. Boom, I already know. It adds up to the speed when you take some stuff when they took out that mechanic and they for fifth edition, you have people sitting around the table that don't know when to cast a spell, how to cast a spell, how many actions does it take. You know, if again, I try to when I tell everybody when we're playing and we're building the game, I'm trying to explore the ideas. Remember, when new players come in, they don't have an idea of how this game is going to work.
Right.
We have to lay down the foundation. Okay, how many actions does it take? Is it a full action? This is a standard action. What does a full action mean? What does a standard action mean? So they have the thing. But once you put the triggers in, it's like, oh, okay, will every time. Encounter, once combat. Daily, once per day. Okay, now daily may be a little bit different because, okay, it could be an encounter, most likely it'd be a counter, or you could do it just once a day. Boom, you're ready to go. You're good to go. You know what powers you have. We, we have it set up for that. And again, mechanically that there's ideas behind it's not like we just do these abilities together.
Right.
The idea was, okay, how does this really work? How deep does this go? First set of abilities maybe a paladin has. These are his combat actions. His combat actions, they affect enemies and targets. Oh, okay, I like that. Radiant smite, I know what that does. Then I'll go to abilities. Abilities affect like healing and they'll affect yourself. So they're
Right.
more like defensive, healing, and whatnot. Okay, so there's the thought process. You have combat, healing, and then you get the enchantments or boons that we have. Those affect the party. So now it's another layer of just wow, if say you want to be a cleric and you just want to heal, you're just using you using your abilities or your enchant, but it also gives you that little bit of teeth that you can smite someone as a
Right.
cleric if you have combat. So you have three tiers of things that you can do, yet you don't feel overwhelmed. Like I could go through a character sheet, put on the side, okay, I want one of these, one of these, one of these. I may never touch the other ones, even though I'm the level that you're supposed to get them. But in those three things that you already have one combat, one ability that helps you out, and one ability that helps the party.
Right.
And I wanted to go back to what you asked me about why I hated mages, because that's going to connect to the next thing I wanted to say. So I hated mages because I felt like their spells didn't grow with them. So you're telling me that if Elminster casts Burning Hands on you, it only does 1d4? In my head, I was like, that makes absolutely no sense to me. This man is 1,000 years old, and when he hits you with Burning Hands, you should incinerate. right? That's just how I
Well, that's how it
feel.
was before. Yeah.
Yeah.
But right in comparison to a first level caster casting Burning Hands, and then yeah, that should hurt a little bit, right? So um, the one
Heck,
thing
even a
that's
magic
really great
missile.
is that right, like the one thing that's great is that we put in the game is that the abilities grow with you. So now, if you're a 20th level mage, that Burning Hands does a lot more damage. So
Right.
if you're the type that likes to get into close quarter combat, you like Icy Touch, Burning Hands, what's the name, Shock and Grasp. You like to do all that stuff, and that's your style. And maybe you don't touch the other spells, like Adrian said. You can still be formidable and enjoy the game and feel good about what you're doing. You know what I'm saying? Whereas if you were that kind of person, that kind of ran out on you after third level because you got those three spells early and they didn't do much anything else after that. You know what I'm saying? So it was kind of the thing of like giving you that option to say, you really want to play them this way? You can grow with this. And that allows the character to really play what they want to play, which allows them to role play and be themselves, which is like a real, like, that's the thing we were searching for.
Right.
So,
And I also what I was gonna say about with Dungeonborn when we started first working on the game. Again, I have already been working on my own campaign game. I published it. I published anthologies for it way back. When I started working with Dungeonborn, I love video games. All of us, I believe, love video games and
Yeah.
everything. I remember playing two games that kind of changed my mindset on how RPGs kind of feel when you're describing it as what it is. Prince of Persia, Sands, what was it? The Sands of
In the
Sands
uh,
of Time.
yeah, Sands of Time, and God of War. So like Sands of Time, Prince of Persia, it looked like it was a great game. It looked nice, it was polished, but whenever you got into a combat or a fight or something like that, it really felt weak. Like the sound effect, everything was like, okay, he's great. It just dies on you. Then you get into God of War. And when
Oh,
you feel God of War and the way the mechanics strike, it's it's meaty.
yeah.
You're so gassed up to play that game because you're like, wow, this has some meat. So as I'm designing it, that's the kind of flavor that I want. It's the Indiana Jones scene in Raiders of the Lost Ark when he's on top of the truck
Yeah.
beating the crap out of the Nazis. It's an adrenaline kick that comes in as an RPG when you're sitting there. When Sherrod is, yes, it is. When Sherrod was running this Saturday, we're playing, we're fighting and everything. Part of the story. As a paladin, we're doing work, we're wiping out guys. Now in the story, he comes up, he rolls some dice, and he's like, "Yo, you just took 50 hit points of damage." So I'm like, "What?" It blew my mind because the character is tough as it is because I'm
Right.
higher level, but the way the ability he used because we're using Dungeonborn, the mechanics and everything, it felt meaty. That 50 hit points, I have 136 hit points. That 50 hit points was
Ooh,
like, oh,
damn.
okay. And
yeah, them rogue
as
backstabs hurt.
yeah, as we built the rogue, to be like that. And then we have other mechanics like burn die, which add to the rolls. So and I agree with Gage Wolf. That's how I always look at all Ubi games. Prince of Persia, aside Prince of Persia and Assassin's Creed
Who the
are the
heck is
worst.
Gage with?
Huh?
Who's
Gage
Somebody
the
Gage?
Wolf.
watching right now.
Yeah, because I
Gage the
Comment.
saw
Wolf.
one guy come up, so I was like,
Yeah, I was
but
like, what is that? I was like, who's that?
but
It's the
That's
comment
awesome.
section.
See, Gage the Wolf.
yeah. So it's like when I look at it, it's like, man, it has no flavor. But again, you're looking. One of the aspects of having a RPG in that kind of vein, and it was the failure. It was that's again. I love fourth edition. I saw the potential of what it could be,
Yeah.
but I also see the potential of what they need to clean off some of the fat.
I
But
was about to say, you know, you don't usually hear "I loved fourth edition."
I love fourth edition.
You don't usually hear that.
You don't want to
Mechanically,
hear what I love, but
yeah.
I leave
He's
it
second
alone.
edition guy over there. Second edition guy over there. But
You know
I'm
that image?
3.5, so
Yo, you know
I
that
I
love
love
image
Yo,
of
3.5.
I was too.
we all love.
I tell you all the
We
time,
all love
I was a
2.5.
3.5 guy,
Hmm.
and me and
Well,
Adrian at some moment in time, we had to really say, how do we make this work? Because he loved those fourth edition mechanics,
Yeah,
and I was like, my goodness, you got to read a paragraph to understand this one skill. I'm not a
you
fan of
did.
this.
You
dude,
did.
I tried fourth edition, and I was sitting there like you guys said, I was like, you know, we're gonna stay at 3.5.
Well, this is the thing.
yo.
I could tell you
I
mechanically
can't stand it. Yeah, but
after creating this game, come on, put it up. After creating this game, I can exactly tell you why a 4E would fail. It failed because it gave you 50,000 powers at first level that you weren't gonna know what to do with. Dungeonborn, while it follows in some form in that vein of the family tree, it doesn't do that. It gives you one or two powers that allow you to do that. So now it's the management of how you do it. If a new player comes in, that new player you're expecting that new player to remember five distinct different powers. No, it's just gonna. Oh, the DM's gonna be doing more work. Now, if you give them take two off, give them three, and tell them, hey, you don't have to use them all, but you have three options. Most of the time, they'll use the will ability. I 3.5. I think it does, but
He wants to say yes, but he's like four. Come
I
on,
ran it. I ran it from the inception. I ran it since it came out 3.0. I like 3.0. I like 3.5. I like role playing. I liked it. In that sense, he's right. It is pretty much the pinnacle of Dungeons and Dragons because fifth edition is 3.5 light.
yeah,
It really is.
it is.
And what they did was they said, you know what, everyone like 3.5. What we're gonna do, we're gonna slap some fourth edition in the background, and you don't think no one's gonna notice, but yeah, it's in the background there.
Exactly.
So they got their cake and ate it too. But again, it's the design concepts that we put together. Me, Johnny, Sherrod, some of our other friends. We sat back and we were like, okay, how do we, for you new players, everybody who's on watching and stuff, how when we bring this out to you, how does it hit you as it hits us?
Right.
As
and
designers.
also, and also, what's really great is that that I liked about it, and kind of like when we were designing it, I was like, this is something I want to see in it. Is that when you get those three skills, it allows you to make sense of what the character is supposed to do, what you want the character to do. So it's not like, wow, this is all over the place. I really don't know what this class is meant to be,
Right.
right? Because I always felt that, again, I could always go back to second edition and third. I always felt that way about a druid. I was like, I have no idea what you're supposed to be doing. Like, you make no sense to me. Are you a priest who shapeshifts? Are you a what are you? Like, and so when we did our version of it, I said, no, I'm the aspect of it I love is, and again, I took from what my experiences, and I love Beast Boy. So I was like, I love the druid being a person that you're using this animalistic idealism. Use it in combat. Use it to help the party. Use it this way. You're not a priest. This is what you do. You shape shift, and in that shape shift, you help your party out by doing specific things. And so by designing it that way, it like created a new flavor to the druid because I used to sit there and be like, I don't know what this class does.
I finally
Right?
understood the druid more when I played World of Warcraft.
I again look at that's been a huge influence. You may not believe it. I'm looking at what Gage will put on, but
Yep.
you may not believe, but World of Warcraft has been a huge influence in gaming.
It
And
has, yeah.
one of the things I find in fifth edition, because I run the fifth edition pro game right now. They're new players. They're learning the system. I'm using my own world that the Grand Realm that I've always used that runs with Dungeonborn. The one thing fifth edition fails to do is what we all used to do in second and third edition. is that we complemented each other. So now you have all these you got all these murder hobos running around
Yeah.
trying to kill everything, and they're not they don't know how to complement each other. Like I could have had in the old days, because we were limited with in second and third edition. As a paladin, say Johnny was a wizard, he would be casting spells against the enemy, but he
Right.
also be buffing me up. That's a World of Warcraft thing as well. That's what they learned from D&D. Same
Yeah.
thing with Sherrod. Sherrod's character, he's a ranger, but you know what? He's coming around. Say he's a ranger. He's coming around to attack the big bad. While as a paladin, I'm doing the defense.
Right.
So all of them are coming at me, which is one of the abilities the paladin can do. They could do unlimited aggro, which
Yeah.
brings everybody towards you, while my man sneaks attack. But that's the part I feel like missing in fifth edition. It's like the players that are coming up don't combine together into that idea of, hey, how do I support you? How do I support you? How do I support you? Dungeonborn is about all that. In any session that we have, everybody in the group, both mine and his, are always trying to figure out, okay, I got this ability that's gonna give you a buff, even though certain things they don't stack, but they're always looking to say, how can I enchant this? Oh,
Right.
let me get this weapon better. Oh, can I get you in position for this? How do we get a flank going? It's that mindset that we try to put into the game in the character classes. That's why the enchants or the boons, they allow you to do those special actions to buff a character.
Right.
They're there for a reason for you to do that. So if you say you don't use it, you might be missing out on how to make a better your companion better, because hey, you may be fighting a bit bad that was wiping everybody out. That thing you don't use could have saved the party.
I gotta
I
So
mean,
admit,
it
like,
feels good to support your
yeah,
party and help in the role too. Like
exactly.
from Saturday's game, they were playing, and they have a player named Tom, and I love the way he role plays. A good guy, everything like that. They're fighting this knight, and the knight's hitting pretty hard, and so Tom activates a spell that's a calm spell, and pretty much you're like, where'd this come from? But he had it. The person was stunned. Basically, he was so calmed because this is a bard. He was so calm, he just sat there. So they were like, come on, let's go. Let's get out of here. Let's get out of here. Leave him alone. Mind you,
but you
it
have to
wasn't an
fight,
attack action. It
Hmm.
right?
wasn't like, we're going to kill this dude. This was like, you helped us get out of this combat situation so we can further help doing what needs to be done. And it was just
That's
simple. A
rare
spell
because
that
usually
made
what
the dude
happens is like we're gonna
docile.
finish him off.
Well,
Yeah. Uh-huh.
again, that's a problem between the way the game is now, where you have websites saying this is how you max out that character,
Yeah.
and how we played in second
Speaking of
edition,
which,
where
before we continue there, Gage is talking about the same thing here. He goes,
Mhm.
5e was meant to simplify it, but took away a lot of what you could do with your character to make them unique
right,
without the game master giving you permission to make them unique.
right. I mean,
Absolutely.
I leave it up to, in that sense, I leave it up to the DM and the navigators, which are us, to decide certain things. There are, and I always say, as I've written in the book, it's not about the the law of the rule, it's the generalization of the rule. So there may be rules in there, but it's not there to, the rules aren't there to stymie the play or to
Right.
stymie your creativity. If it's outside the norms of the reality, the shared reality that you're trying to create, then that's where we step in as game masters. But again, sometimes it's a fine line, because again, you're playing with newer Dungeons and Dragons players, that because there's not a big DM pool, don't know what it was like in second edition, third
Yeah.
edition,
Hmm.
3.5. There were some 3.5 stuff that you fighting forever from some battles you fight in, and you get waxed.
Yeah.
They, these characters, and don't get me wrong, Dungeonborn, when you make up the characters, they're on par with Pathfinder, I think, in terms of power and stuff like
Hmm.
that. But the monsters are on par with them. With 5e, the 5e guys are here, and the monsters are like they're, they're like on the bottom here. So it's like you're not good. You're not getting there. You know, you're
Yeah,
not
because
as
you want the
powerful as
challenge
the player.
too.
Yeah.
Like you want the challenge too. You want to be like, listen, I want to be victorious because you are the hero, but you want to, like, my whole thing is that when I build a monster, I say to myself, by the time this fight is over, three of my characters are going to be at like 3 hit points. One character is going to need like maybe some sort of like a healing spell to go from being unconscious, and maybe two of them are still okay. Like I need you to feel something. I need you to
Yeah.
be like, I got to step back. This guy's hitting me too hard. Like I need you to feel something
You got to
because
plan it. You want
that's
them
it should
to,
be a
to think
challenge.
about it. Yeah.
Right.
That's like it. You want them to think about it. You
And
want them
we
to,
again,
not just rush in there and get themselves killed, which I've
right.
seen happen
Or
many
rush
times.
in and feel like I could swing through this dragon
Yeah.
because I got all these things. You're like, nah,
We all
this
think
is
that.
dangerous. Think through it.
Yeah, I think we all think that. I think when, again, you have a high level character, 13 level, 16 level character, you go in, you're like, yeah, I'm gonna smoke everything. Then you find something that's bigger and bites harder than you. You're like, oh, okay, flashbacks.
I think I've played Mage too long because my mind is automatically going, how far can I stay away from this shit and do what I need to do?
Well, I can tell you this much. I can tell you, for your viewers and yourself, if you played a wizard in our game, they cast much more frequently. They have spell slots or spell points that you can use. The spells in our game only take one spell point, so you can cast more times than the standard Dungeons and Dragons games. But that also goes back to what I was trying to say. The wizard isn't a weak character. His hit points might be weak, his defense might be weak, but spell casting wise, he could throw down with the
Oh,
best of them.
definitely.
So it's one of those things where, again, you have to put your hands on it. And again, the invitation goes out to you or anyone who would like to play. Let us know. Do we? From what I'm seeing, we do have a scaling for the monsters, but it's in hit points. The way okay, monster creation, because me and Sherrod worked on this as well. The hit points and whatnot are usually dependent on the type of hit dice, like the old way. But each monster has a different type of hit dice. Some are D20s, some are D10s, D8s. So the big bads, the masters, they usually have a D12, D20 hit dice.
Right.
So their pool of hit points is greater. Their pool of damage is greater. The amount of things they can do recharges. So if they use ability, they can recharge. They have the recharge mechanic. So you roll a certain D6 to see if that corresponds to the action that you're trying to do or the mechanic you're trying to do to bring that monster to attack. Also, we have reactions. So we have actions and reactions. Reactions happen when half of a creature's hit points are gone. We call them DMPs. Damage points are gone. So some of these mechanics are legacy mechanics. So that's where we're at in terms of the game in that way in terms of monsters. So you can have
And
go ahead, Shabbat.
no, and so for like the level scaling, like there are things we kind of use like a challenge rating, and the challenge rating is kind of based off of like the party. So if you got four, if you have and it's not like what D&D does it where it's like fourth level characters means a challenge rating of 12. We kind of got in the system where no, this is a fourth level challenge rating, and like there's certain things that come of it. Then there's also the type of monster. Are you like the little grunts that comes in there and you're just cannon fodder? Or are you like the one that I've come here to destroy? And then that determines the dice, your skill level, what abilities you do have, and things like that. So that the challenge is effective. It challenges the actual characters in
And
the
again,
game. And again,
as
go ahead.
as a
I'm sorry.
creating a like if you're a navigator DM creating a monster, again, you have the tools. We've added the tools where you can say, hey, you can buff up these monsters and say, okay, maybe you have a vampire. Maybe what you're looking at in terms of the vampire isn't as powerful as your venturing party. So you can say, okay, I have a cleric vampire. Now it'll allow you can say I can use some abilities from that cleric with the vampire, or like feats. Maybe I'm developing also a system of monster feats like third edition is, or 3.5 had.
Right.
So it gives them a you the I you what I really do with monsters sometimes is just give them the feats that are already in the book that everybody uses. Because again, it's a shortcut. It'll add on to your character. You could do this in most role playing games. Remember D20, it's all D20. So it's we've been playing D20 for almost 30 years. So there are different ways of going about it. But it's all up to you when you sit there and you know your players. Once you know your players, you're like, huh, okay, I know I need this, and this. The game will allow you to have that. That's in the game. So you don't have to kill yourself. You don't have to, you don't have to worry about it. And then it's up to you to just find the how can you say it, the recipe for your
Right.
monster.
That's a good way to do it. It gives you a bigger challenge, and
Right.
becomes the monster becomes a little more personal.
Mm-hmm. 100%.
Dude, you guys have a really good game going here. It's fantastic. John, I know what you're doing with the Tales of Vinlar is interesting too as a writer, because I love this whole back and forth, and you're doing a special like what is it, pick your own adventure type of thing.
Yes, there is a reason why I did it that way. Um, I want, as I was talking to Rod and Adrian about it, I wanted to be able to kind of like just get a different genre of people to be interested in Tales of Inlar and in Dungeonborn. The connection is to network them into different stories. So when you see here, you basically this actually, if you look at the beginning image,
Hmm.
it, it's actually the face is based off of characters. I'm using the idea of what J.R. Tolkien did, where he would base friends, he would base characters on friends. Well, this character is supposed to be based off my daughter. So the face that you see in the beginning part of this of the story is her face.
Right.
I just drew it. I just drew the face. It took me a while, but I learned to draw it. To draw it. Um, the purpose of this story, and there's gonna be more stories like it. I just gotta have more time on it. Is to get people to play a game by reading it, and I definitely have this. I created this as a module, or you would say like a 5 to 6 week story,
Right.
and then I wrote it out in a way that they could actually see it. The highlighted areas, they're going to have like the viewer will be able to click on it and be able to get a definition on what does this word mean and what does that word. These are just words that we created
Oh,
to
interesting.
kind of like give the player a unique feel of the language and culture. This is based, the story of the that you're reading here is the prequel to what we're running.
Right.
So the curse already happened where Rod ran the story. The curse was the blight on Vinlar, which was the Gargantua dungeon that was actually destroying Vinlar. It basically was going after, it was being controlled by a shaman. The shaman was controlling a stone. The stone's history comes from a grand meteorite that hit the island, or the continent, and it possessed certain powers, which has made, because of its because of the stone coming from outer space.
Right.
Those powers have created different things within our story of Vinlar. One of the story. So when you see here, this is actually the prequel. The story that you're going to be reading here is the prequel,
Right.
the actual curse. It was Eviana, excuse me, it was the young woman, the young girl, Eviana, who finds the stone, or is given the stone to hide it. And when she hid it, it's left in the air what happened to the stone.
Right.
Few many years passed, many years, like it could be from 500 to 800 years have passed, and the stone was found. And so this is the story. This is how the story began. So if you see images of like Tales of Vinlar, that we have an image of like a meteorite coming from the sky, this is the story. Now there's other things about this meteorite that's even more interesting. We can't tell you. You have to play it.
I was about to say, stop!
You
Don't
know,
say too much. Got to play
yeah,
it
Play
in
the
the
game.
room. We're basically
You
gonna
have
be
a
feeling
moment.
it.
yeah, because the story has it's supposed to be it's supposed to be 10 10 stories that all lead to greater suffering in Vinlar. Yet it brings about a community of different bloodlines and different people to come together to fight in a great in issues that we deal with in the current situation today, with racism and overpowering government takeover, all that other stuff, um, and people come together to actually do something about it. This story is about building. My me I've told Rod that I'm fascinated by the stepping stones that we create, the building blocks,
Right.
the store of the actual game. I'm interested in those things.
Good
Um,
call.
I'm not interested so much into the rules and regulations, although it's extremely important. Um, what I really want is people to see the story
Right.
and play in the story and see themselves as a character. So if you've gone through it, you're just going through a taste. I didn't complete the choose your own adventure. It's gonna be completed hopefully when before summertime, so that I can start in the next one. The next one will be on like a gangs in New York type of story. The
Interesting.
third one would be almost like a Walking Dead, but it's not. We're not using undead. It's a no. It's a kind of story. Then the fourth one, which is up in the air with the third, we're thinking about doing a story on a ship that falls in that travels in the wrong place.
Gerard's like, no, don't give it away. Shh,
Yeah,
shh.
it really is. It is very, very, very. We want to make it unique and exciting and
Oh,
scary.
this is just between us. Spill the tea. Tell us everything.
Between us, yeah.
What happened?
Please,
He said
please.
it's just between us. Don't worry about it.
Yeah. So if
We're
I ever,
gonna take this down as soon as you know.
yeah. So I mean, actually, people are watching because I posted it up in different places. So,
And I know he did. That's why I'm like,
yeah. I posted it up in places in my networks. So again, I just like we want to be able to tell more of a tale, but at the same time allow players to see it unfold. And the unique story, I wanted to give morale. That's my way of doing stories, is to tell a moral to the story. Um, I'm really fascinated by the combination, basically community, a community that stays together, works together, saves people together. And this is what Tales of Inlar is about. It's about a community that's been divided by its bloodline. It's been divided by its suffering. If you look at the story, the characters in the game, or the cultures in the game, didn't ask to be at Vinlar. They were there because there it was just either tragedy or blessing. Um, Salandros came to Vinlar not because of the fact that he wanted to be there. He was shocked by the explosion in his own country. He ran away from a volcano that exploded. If you read the stories on Tales of Vinlar, it was so traumatic to him that he ended up losing his daughter. The story, if you look at the diary of or I forget the name of the journal of Salandros,
Right.
he's the first king of Vinlar. Vinlar didn't have a king. Vinlar had chieftains. It was indigenous people who really took care of the land and cultivated it. While Salandros was just coming there because he lost his land and he had to start fresh. So he felt that his God drew him to this place.
Right.
And long and behold, he ended up having to face certain things that he would never expect. But
I
he
think
got blessings from it, which ended up creating a dynasty.
I
But
think
go
one
on.
of the things I think one of the things that I in terms of the game and where we're at to with Dungeonborn, Tales of Vinlar, like Johnny was saying, we all have that those Numenor moments where you've had lost cities of Numenor,
Right.
Atlantis. It's not in the destruction of the how can you say the actual physical aspect of those lands, but it's the destruction of what happens to those people and what they're feeling.
Right.
So what Vinlar, because Vinlar takes place in my home, the Grand Realm, which is the campaign world for Dungeonborn. It's an idea of where some of these races, like Johnny was saying, are leaving or trying to escape other things that are happening and explosions, and they do find themselves on Vinlar. Again, when I designed the game, when I designed my world with another friend of mine,
Right.
I had empty spots, and I was just like, and I had always planned for my friends who RPG with us to fill in some of those spots. And with John and Sherrod, they took Vinlar and they took a little spot was that which they can use.
Right.
So I'm in a way I've always said I'm kind of hands off on some of the design stuff in Vinlar because I want to be like everybody else in the sense of I get to read up I get to read up
Exactly.
for what's
Want to be
happening.
surprised a bit? Yeah.
Yeah, I play and I get to read up on it. But eventually there has to be in my head, eventually there will be people that will find because the island is pretty much away from the main continents of
Right.
where the core Dungeonborn, the fantasy, the wizards, and the magic is happening. So it allows for that uniqueness to come in. But that's part of the fun things about smashing these things together at one point to see how they reflect upon each other and what kind of event comes out of it. Again, me and Sherrod have come up with ideas where we may have an event. You know, it's something that it's a possibility. But we were, it's fun to work in terms of having a partner that or several partners that are on the same kind of creative
Right.
page. So he'll come up with something that's different, and then it'll get me going on an idea. Then I'll come up with something that's different, and it'll get him on an idea. Then we'll go to John as John's writing his stories. Oh, okay, Salandras. This is going to be interesting. How does the curse, how do all that stuff affect everything that's in the future where
Right.
we're playing? So it's very again, it's that creative aspect is something you can beat. And again, we're trying to give you the tool suite because that's what I call it. I call it the tool suite. We're trying to give you the tool suite to tell your story. We're trying to give you because some people don't gravitate into creating their own stuff very well,
No.
or they don't know how to create. Here,
And sometimes it can be a little too much.
it can
As
be
DMs, we know what they're talking about. Sometimes
right.
they don't even want to create their own character for the game. So
Exactly. You know what? So we have it here for you. We'll have character sheets. We'll have the game. All you have to do is look at it. You can ixnay this and ixnay that to your want. But
Yeah.
Again, we're giving you the platter. It's up to you to decide what you want to take from the platter and how you want to work with it.
So you got the book already. I've seen it there.
I
Is it ready to go? It's ready to sell to people?
Not yet, and it's one of the challenges of being working a full time job and finding time to actually be there to edit it, draw, create on it. So we have the book that I have in my hand is our play book that we
Right.
use. I have the PDF files to go. So I'm at this point now editing it again because
Mhm.
again, you always find with the book is over 200 pages long.
Yeah.
So it's a process of going through almost each and every line to find the mistakes, also change terminology, and does it sound right when you're reading it? Because again, someone else is going to read it and they'll be like, "Oh, that doesn't sound right. This doesn't make sense." So I'm always trying to do that as well. And also, again, it's not easy. We're only three people, four and five other. We have a group of like 4 or 5 other
Right.
people that come and help us. But still, I now understand what it is for like game designers when they
Yeah.
get into that point of how long will this take? Will it ever end? What was it? Dust McCann. I forgot. There was a game that took forever, and I was just like, man, my campaign world didn't take this long to put together, and that took me 5 years. you know, so it's a process, but we're trying to get it out in the next year or two.
So
That's
once you guys are at that point, are you going to kickstart it, or are you just going to publish it?
I think I'm just gonna publish it. I've done Kickstarter before. It wasn't successful in that sense. I want to publish it first, put out
Hmm.
PDFs.
Get,
Um,
start putting it out there. Got start getting
right,
the feel for it.
right.
I got you.
Let people pick it up and put out PDFs, and then when when I'm doing after we finish doing that, then hit the Kickstarter. Get some people,
Makes
more
sense.
people, and everything. Just because again I did it, I've done it before with my anthology books and
Hmm.
it didn't click. You only have like 30 days to get the same amount of
Yeah, and
people on
you
Kickstarter.
already need to have a following. You already need to have a following in order to get at least some kind of success there. Because when you start
Exactly.
from scratch, it's a little more difficult, and you got to work harder.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It in the nutshell, and then you have a lot of stuff going on with like the art. um Again, I'm an artist. I went to school for it. I have another person that's an artist friend of me. We've been going back and forth. But with this new AI stuff going on, it's like as a company owner, you're like, you get tempted with the idea of using the stuff, and
Makes life
I'm
a little
there as
easier.
well.
Yeah, but you don't want to try. You don't want to go in that direction. I got you.
Mm.
You know, I don't, but again, it's one of those things where you're like, what's the right choice? If I want to get a nice looking book out, which you can do, how do you use the tools that you have?
Right.
That's always been my whole thing is you have all these tools, and I look at AI and I look at all this stuff putting together.
So
How
I
do
see
you use
we're
the
at the
tools to the
15
best?
mark here. So
Mhm.
what you need to do is let people know where they can keep track of this because I did put your Facebook page into the comments there, but it's
Yes.
important to let them know where they can find all of you and everything you guys are doing. So yeah, you can start off, Adrian.
All right. I'm on. You could go on to Facebook. I'm on Facebook under Guild Runners. You could type that in Google. It's just Guild Runners. It'll come up. I'm sorry, I'm not so great with like the whole links and everything, but just type in Guild Runners and it'll come up on Facebook. That's like my Facebook page where we have a lot of stuff talking about Dungeonborn, RPGs and everything. I also have a page that's set up for Dungeonborn called Evolved at blogger.com. So you can look at there. I have some old web pages and links that need to be updated. So for now, you could just Facebook and the blogger site is good.
And you,
And I would
Sharad?
say I would say just to add to that because those same places is where you can catch me as well. So at those same places, but I would say also to add into that well as well, if people are interested, if you're listening and you're interested, like hit us up so that we can set something up. If you're in New York, we would love to come and test the game out with you. If you're not, hey, listen, we have vehicles like this. We can still come and test the game with you. You know
Exactly.
what I'm saying? So take, if you're interested, please, we will take that opportunity and we will share it with you.
One.
Well, you are welcome. Like I'm really the short end of like the storyline. I haven't DM'd in 1,000 years. That feels like it. So I'm really petrified in DMing, and I don't like the new additions, but I'm learning. So they're teaching me. But I am testing out the games which are the short games. So if anybody's interested, of course you can get in touch with us about it. The games are 5 to 6 weeks. If you don't want to play a long campaign, you're welcome to just try it out. I am definitely for that. You could try it, or you can read about it when you see the choose your own adventure. I do also want to highlight some other stuff on our website for talesofenliar.com. We have I'm constantly I'm updating stuff there, and I was just looking at it. I have 3 articles that I posted up that may be of your interest. It's called Gaming Your Way. Okay, so um, actually, gaming the way you like. Um, this is basically articles that I have written. 3 articles that I've written when in my experience of playing Dungeons and Dragons, where I was able to um, do certain things that would allow the players to have fun with. One of them, I don't know if Rod mentioned it because I wasn't here for that, was creating a war scene. Um, I saw so many people who ever had like games and they did war scenes that I was not quite impressed by the war scenes. So I started writing about war scenes. If you see it on the right side, it says gaming the way you like. You can click on that and then it's just basically read up on the article. It just basically talks about how you could create a war scene, making it simple, and doing your work, doing your homework, and to prepare when you're going to be doing that kind of scene. Everybody loves a war scene. Everybody loves to be in war.
Right.
I mean, if you ever, I don't know what Rod will say. I don't think Adrian ever tasted one of my games when it came to like a war scene, but Rod could tell you a little bit about it. Um, I don't know, Rod, if you're free to do it. I don't know if you did it already, but
No, 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 no. I mean, listen, I think that, and I've always credited John with the fact that, like, because I'm maybe the younger of the DMs, and that's saying a lot
Mhm.
since I'm old, right? I'm probably the younger of the guys, and so I've picked up a lot from them because I come from a futuristic background. My first DMing when I was 15, 16, I was doing Cyberpunk. I was doing Buck Rogers, right? Like, I didn't step into D&T until years later.
Right.
So then, I had a hard time with it at first because some things were unbelievable to me because of the fantasy aspect, right? So it took a while for me to get into it, and I learned from some great DMs. God rest his soul, Jim, Adrian, John.
yep.
I always tell from John, the one thing I took from him is I used to play in his war scenes and be like, that is freaking genius. I feel like every step I take, something else is happening. I got to react to that, or maybe I got to ignore it and go do it this way. But if I ignore this coming at me, something else bad might happen. And you got to kind of play into that, right?
Right.
So I stole it. Like, you know what I'm saying? I'll be honest with you. I stole it and made it part of like what I do when I start war scenes or battle scenes and
To the
things of that
detriment
nature.
of
I
your
mean,
players.
say again?
Yeah,
To the detriment of your players.
To the
yeah.
detriment of my players, definitely.
I
But to the
mean,
fun of my players as well.
think about it. You know the most famous battle scene that probably changed the way we see battles is probably for me Braveheart. The scenes where they're just going at it, and they go at one person and another person's coming. They're chopping this way, they're chopping that way. They get clipped here. That's how I made it. Except you didn't realize it. I didn't tell you what's going on. I didn't tell you who's who. And every time you finished a round, you would either encounter two or three people. Then the next round, you would encounter six, seven, and then the third round, you encounter a weakling, and you take that person out, and then afterwards, it all depended on you finishing off what you needed to do. After that, you could make a decision in helping out your friend if you see your friend from far, and
Yeah.
you could continue running the game. So it felt like, yo, I just went through a war, like it was real, and then I got into something else, and then the story continued, and I didn't know where I was at, and I was like, and I made you that confused, but you felt like you were there. You
Right.
felt,
So I
Those
would
are the
say
good
like,
games. Yeah.
yeah.
and
So I would
people
say, oh, go ahead, John.
talk to me
Sorry.
about it. Go ahead, Rod. I'm sorry.
No, so I was just gonna say like those type of DMing tips, like I gotta give respect to the man. Like I said, I mean, stays with second edition. I love him for it. But I gotta give respect to the man. Like there's certain tips that if you go on that site and you listen to the idealisms, if you're like learning how to start battles and do things like that, and like set certain things so that you can DM your own way, I would say definitely hit that up and get some good advice.
All right, folks. There you have it. We're at the 1:30 mark, which means we've been having way too much fun.
I'm,
But you guys have to really go check these guys out. They're fantastic. When we saw you guys at Fanfare, it was interesting to see the game running when you guys were running it for the kids and see how they played. It was
oh,
so
that was
much
a
fun to
blast.
see.
That
Yeah.
was a
It was a
blast.
blast.
So you guys are interested in playing, just hit them up because you can do it in person. You can do it like this via I guess virtual. Because a lot of people are doing virtual now, and
Yeah.
you got all the games like Critical Role, you got all the games like D20. Dude, it's become something else now.
We're gonna save that. We're gonna save that for the Dungeons and Dragons one.
For another, yeah, save that for the next one.
That's got a lot to say about that. But
So there you have it, folks. This has been the guys from Dungeon Born, and you guys should check them out. It looks like a fantastic game. Keep up with them. See what they're doing. Make sure that you know what's going on. You're gonna want to get this game when it comes out.
please, more than welcome. Just come hit us up on Facebook,
Absolutely.
Blogger, Tales of Vinlar. We're always there for you. We're always there for you guys.
Oh, and check out the YouTube one, the YouTube video we did at Fanfare. There's
That's right.
several interviews there, but there's one interview that I really went deep with Sharad and Andrew and Adrian, asking them questions about cultural, like how do you get people from a different culture to play the game and all that other stuff. I'm gonna post it up on our Facebook so you can take a look at that because it's an interesting commentary on how we can use D&D for inspiring people from different cultures to play.
Yeah,
I
which
agree
is
with
all
that.
important.
Yeah.
All very important.
Yeah.
And D&D is much more than people make it out to be. It's helpful in so many ways, especially because it's a very good place it's a good place to put things and see things and see how you can handle things, and you know it's good therapy.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes,
it is. It is.
yes, it is.
And of course, we're going to do a special D&D episode coming soon, so we'll
Well, when it's
get
coming,
more into the nitty-gritty of the D&D stuff in that episode, and we're going to bringing a bunch of stuff in there and having a big discussion.
are you talking about what I think you're talking about?
A big D&D episode.
More than that.
Something that we filmed before, and
That's not a,
Oh no! Well, the guys from Chatham there, where we played the game, they're working on something with the video, and it should be out soon. But I'm talking
Oh,
about
nice.
us sitting here
Cool.
like on a round table discussing role playing and Dungeons and Dragons and getting into the deep of it.
Sounds good.
Right.
sounds good. Sounds good.
Yep,
All right,
yep.
folks. A little fast thing over here. Make sure to check out what we got over here. Cold Cutter, which is on Kickstarter right now, running its engagement. It is funded, but like we like to say here, you want to help these things out. You want to get them at least double funded, or even
Yeah.
more, because the more money you put into it, the more money they put back into the books. So go help out Cold Cutter, which is a great detective book. And we also have this raunchy little thing, which is only active until Friday.
Lord.
I think Friday is its last day. It's already funded. It's at 3,697. 157 backers. 4 days to go. Go check out Sex Night. You know, of course, a lot of parents deal with the fact that sometimes they just want to have a sex night and everything goes wrong.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
So go check out this book. It's not what you think it is, and at the same time, you might know what they're talking about. There you have it, folks. Of course, on Wednesday we'll be covering more Kickstarters and more things. There's of course the tragedy Kickstarter going on right now, and of course Robert Powers has his Cataclysm, and our pal from Corrupt Moon has his. Go check out those. Make sure you all just support, because Kickstarters need your support. It's the only way the independents are going to get to where they need to go. And I know a lot of people complain about Marvel and DC. Well, then go support the independents, because then Marvel and
Absolutely.
DC are going to have to do something.
The creatives need help. The creatives
Exactly.
need help.
Yeah.
I see Andrew just showed up. You missed a good show, bro. That you have him. Andrew's also a game maker like yourselves. He's worked for D&D as well.
Nice.
And he's like, look, a sex night.
We're building the
Oh,
stature
sexy.
now.
Uh-huh.
Good night, everybody.
And I feel like that's a perfect place to end this. And of course, this show ends like this. All right, folks. There